Hi, I'm Christine. This video is part 2 in our 2-video series about your best black and white. In part 1, we looked at white for all 12 seasons or groups of natural coloring. We looked at black or black alternatives. And then we focused on the 3 winters because they kind of set the baseline for pure white and pure black in terms of that very high contrast. And today we're looking at the other 9 seasons who do not wear pure white or pure black as their best appearance choice, and so looking at alternatives for them and a color that I think is particularly beautiful. A reminder that our videos are about color, not style. So for all of the colors that you see, picture them in any kind of appearance item or any kind of style that you prefer. The color season that you have, the color palette, it's like a little fan, 60 colors, maybe some of them have 90 colors. It's like your color toolbox. Inside of that, you can play pretty freely. But I see the other side of it, which is someone gives you this great decorated toolbox that says you can make anything, you can fix anything. And I'd be a bit, does this thing come with an instruction manual? Because there's a lot of information here. Yes, there is a downloadable PDF. It's just like buying a new printer. The link is in the description box. 30 pages of what your color analysis might be like for that season. Important points in terms of getting dressed, more conversation about combining colors, about creating the look, what kind of prints, what kind of neutrals, how do they go together, cosmetics, hair color, and a section for men. So link again in the description under ebooks. We're looking at the 3 autumns first, beginning with True Autumn. Our previous video was about light neutrals for True Autumn, and we saw many white and beige and brown options. Here we've got a few more. And I think that golden camisole actually appeared in that last video. I try not to repeat items, but I think of light gold, golden beige, and medium and darker golds as really neutral for True Autumn. So up with the white, darker white, you see the red orange in it. It could work pretty well for dark autumn as well, I think. And there's texture in this white, which is only going to enhance it for a True Autumn colored person. Below that, soft salmon beige, another substitute for white, still light enough to create the contrast with the darker tones. This group, True Autumn, goes quite light and quite dark as long as colors are warm and soft, and so high contrast is available. I mentioned in the last video that I think gray is hard to find in the warm seasons, and being a strong believer in use the resources available to you instead of waiting for the ones that are not. My love for gold and texture for autumn extends to this skirt. So the middle row is, for the most part, black alternatives. We talked in the first image on all blacks about how dark brown is a very good stand-in for black or dark gray for True Autumn. So I love this skirt because the golden threads are woven into the dark brown. Then you get golden zippers. It just adds to the whole effect. Below that, dark olive. I like the attention to detail in this garment. So it doesn't have to be a jacket, right? It could be a suit and a coat. It could be pants and a sweater, a skirt and a sweater. The fur lining of the hood, great. The buttons are terrific. And below that, we have another color that I think substitutes for black incredibly well, and that's dark maroon. Really just a beautiful black alternative. In the third row, we've got the colors that I think say something very special for this kind of coloring. If you picture the True Autumn forest on the hillside, all those colors going up the hill, if it were done in only orange and gray or only yellow and green, it would look odd. We don't get into our cars and drive into the countryside to look at that kind of forest. We're looking at multicolors together. This is how autumn and warm seasons play to their strengths. And that's what the scarf is all about. It's this beautiful medley. You've got light and dark. You've got color diversity with red and green and orange and yellow. In winter, the very high color brightness would make this very hard to look at, rendered in winter colors. They tend to say more and mean more and do more as standalone colors, but that's not really true of the other seasons. These generally look better, all those other seasons, in different ways. And so the maximizing the light to dark contrast doesn't really go as far as, for example, here, a medley of warm, golden, glowing, rich colors. Then we have the green gold skirt. It's like a bronzed green. This color is a little bit darker, maybe a touch darker, like the jacket, to the darkness level of the jacket on the left. This will take years off a true autumn face. It is amazing for smoothing out the skin texture. And as ever, you can wear it as a turtleneck if you want to, or pants. The item has, at the bottom, there are two beautiful shades of green in the quarter zip sweater. And I put it there also to point out that center panel, that light, soft green, another really nice white alternative, maybe a shade lighter than this for true autumn. Moving on to our next season, the calm gorgeousness that is soft autumn. First row, the top, a white alternative, a touch of golden warmth and a little bit of a greenish tinge as well in that white. Below that, more traditional beige, could call that oatmeal, more visible warm tones without the stronger gold and red that will appear in true autumn. And then below that, a medium dark brown, maybe a dark mushroom color. These mixed kind of colors together are fantastic for soft autumn because it's the way the colors of the earth, if you look at the earth or bark or trees, you have all these variegated colors together. And we saw it also in true autumn where we had golden brown woven together in the skirt with the zippers. Second row, could call these our black alternatives. The shirt at the top, medium gray. Soft autumn is the lightest of the three autumns, goes to the lightest end point, let's say, and the look would average out to an overall medium darkness level, maybe medium dark, and this can be made with a mixture of light and medium dark colors, just like every palette has. And I would see one of their whites with this gray in a pant in the combination about as light as the overall effect needs to go. And I actually probably would like a darker element. Darkness is grounding for autumn. It fulfills shapes and it looks really good. Below that, gorgeous khaki green jacket. Just plain gorgeous. Nothing to say about that. It's beautiful. And then below that, the suede skirt, both beautiful next to this coloring and absolutely great substitutes for black. The third row at the top, this is where I get to add the colors that I think make this type of natural coloring sing. The light cactus green, the top, beautiful texture in the pleats and a gorgeous level of shine where the lights and the darks are not much different from one another or from the main color. That's a good color concept for summer in general because there is summer influence in autumn. But I mean, these are the colors of a generous, abundant, gentle earth. And I love those colors together with soft autumn because they appear together in the world that surrounds us. Below that, an absolute favorite also in clothing, there's rose gold. Could be jewelry, could be a beautiful hair color or highlight, an eyeshadow, could be a lip color. Maybe this is a rosy copper sand. And then below that, the dress, mixed lighter and darker browns. On its own, the brown may be a little bit beyond the darkness limit, but mixed together in the print with a lighter color, the overall averages to a very manageable darkness level. Beautifully slenderizing for the silhouette, defines the facial contours. If a color is too light all over, the shape can become wider and rounder for autumn. Doesn't happen so much with spring, for example. And you've got that golden glow of autumn. I mean, picture this in a room full of black. Would be a standout and also beautiful for a Saturday lunch date. Our next season is dark autumn first row, white alternatives. The one at the top, a little more gold. The one below, more of the visible red or orange tones that we saw in the white panel for the 12 previous video, but not white enough to be winter. And then at the bottom, a neutral golden beige with a slight olive cast. Beautiful, easy alternative to white. And because this season goes darker, if you want to create that formality of high contrast, the dark colors are darker, therefore the lighter colors can be a little bit darker and still separate lights and darks really nicely. Second row, some ideas about black alternatives. The t-shirt at the top is a reminder to me that black is perfectly fine for this season because they wear darkness so well. What can be a problem is very dark and cool at the same time. I'd never wear cool black and silver jewelry together for a dark autumn, or any black with silver jewelry. So the solution is warm up the black. A print like this does it with this incredible gold and burnt orange that they wear so well. Option, choose a black with visible warmth. You'll see bronzy tones within the black. And then next down, dark brown turtleneck, very flattering color, beautiful as an eyeshadow, not really that difficult to find, I don't think. And I think it just looks so much more beautiful. It tells a story so much better than default black. The dress below, I think it's just kind of amazing. It's a beautiful combination of neutrals, light grays, golden green in the lower half, areas of dark whiskey brown, and the black is being used in the print, but only in small areas. It's not taking precedence over the color area, same as the green crocodile print-ish blouse that we saw for Bright Winter in the last video. Black is being used to define shapes. It adds a crisp element. It cools the overall effect without it being in any way a black dress. It's like Bright Spring, which we'll see soon. Small focused areas of black can be quite good if they're managed. Third row, some of my favorites. At the top, glowing warm red. This is fabulous. Dark autumn, you know, it's like those coals, those glowing coals at the end of a campfire. And just before you put earth or water or something on them. So there's definitely black there, but it's not the only thing going on. There's glowing red, orange, and that's what makes the magic happen. It's that glowing candle in an otherwise black room or dark room. And then below that, a dark bronze green, beautiful texture and sheen. Once again, you see there's black in the color, but it's not the predominant feature of the color or what makes the garment beautiful. And then below that, another red or burgundy, could be mistaken for black in dim light, but as soon as light, even candlelight, touches it, you see the color as a dark burnished red, dark autumn's own brand of magic. Now we come to summer. I think of texture as a really important effect for autumn. It just makes everything better. Same way that light to dark contrast does for winter. And we'll talk about spring after summer, but what about summer? What is its color? What's its special language? And I don't know that I have fully formulated how this idea looks, but I know that the words are peace and grace. Calm to me is what looks strong and convincing and belonging and a breath of fresh air when worn by summers. Media puts them in these dark color concepts and cream and black like everybody else, or high contrast, but the wavelengths of the person and what they're wearing, they block each other. They literally cancel one another out. I mean, is there a better way to get in your own way than block your own light? And in their colors, they look peaceful, they look capable, they look controlled, not controlling. I mean, I'd like people to look at me that way and to see those same intentions, and also the deliberate decision to not look like everybody else. We have a couple more whites in the first row. Softer than snow. By that I mean grayer than snow. Think of white flour as an option. The one in the center, small amount of yellow tinge, but not enough to put it into spring. There's no gold here for autumn either. And then below that, a white alternative, that silvery tank top. Item actually has a bit of shimmer. You'll see when you enlarge it or see it up close. Just beautiful. It's not sequin or sparkle. It's not overt shine where the highlights go to white. It's just this very subtle shimmer when the light moves across it. Summer to me is very much about moonlight and silvery illumination. You see it coming off the angles of the face when the person wears their color. And maybe in this silver you can see a tiny little bit of a pink tinge as well. Next row at the top, we said in the first video panel with the 12 blacks that the True Summer option had some violet in it. You'll also see medium and darker mauve grays, and you'll also see medium and darker grays with blue-green in them. And this one combines blue, green, and gray. Would be just gorgeous as a piece of clothing from a social distance. We've also said that what distinguishes winter from summer neutrals is that winter neutrals don't have a lot of color pigment. Stainless steel sink, it's, or a way to, gray never looks like it has a lot of pigment, or not often, especially in cooler seasons maybe. Lay a spoon on it, lay a piece of silverware on it, and you'll very quickly pick up the color, the blue and green pigment would be much more noticeable than if you put that spoon on any of those winter grays. In the center, it's a kind of navy blue, not too dark. I think of it as just a great basic black alternative. If you're not going to wear black, if it doesn't really go anywhere on you, what does? This does. You don't need to make very high light to dark contrast. The person is not colored with that kind of extreme. There is not really anything to be gained by wearing it. Below that, the dress, variegated white and blue-gray textile, blue-gray detail at the shoulders. I love this for so many reasons. The contrast is not high. It doesn't need to be. It doesn't say anything. If it is, there's no point going that way. The buttons and the belt, all the details are also, and the stitching are not particularly contrasting. They just stay in the story. The print reminds me of moving water. I appreciate that there are no strong geometrics. You see sometimes patterns like this in the iris of the eyes of summer people. There are not strong geometrics, and that really works very well with the colors themselves. Then we have the very beautiful colors. They're all beautiful. The dress at the top, we can think of light blue as standard summer. Business wear, office shirt blue. But it can be as spectacular for summer as black can be for winter if the garment is special. If I saw this walking into a room, I would just be literally turned to stone right on the spot. Next one down, that dark teal. One of my absolute favorite colors on True Summer, and a fabulous black alternative. And then beyond that, I think purple is gorgeous on summers because they are so much pink and blue-based people. And whatever garment this is worn in, or whatever textile, it's just a beautiful color. Light summer, beginning again with a couple more whites. You do see the warmth in this white, right? Vanilla ice cream, you can see that, yellow. The skirt below has even more yellow pigment, but the textile softens the color, so it doesn't look bright yellow. And this is also here as a reminder that outfits can put the light color in the lower half, and that neutrals don't have to be perfect. No color has to be perfect. It has to work well enough with all the other colors, because that's what harmony means, agreement between a number of things. Below that, soft light gray. We see this color in retail often, or a color like it. And I think that it's on light summer people that I find it's actually really beautiful. It accessorizes incredibly well. It does not look like the skin tone. It does not look like a washout. It's an actual piece of clothing in its own right. You see the shapes and you see the texture, and it's quite meaningful on next to that type of coloring. Second row, well, sparkle and twinkle, our spring's world. And the shrug at the top, medium cool gray for light summer, but it becomes special by adding a little bit of sparkle, just, sprinkled on there like little decorations on a cake. I appreciate too the sparkle is not super warm or disco colored or bulky or chunky. It really is just perfect. Below that, a tank top in a blue-gray on a light summer colored person. This color would serve as a great medium dark neutral or black alternative in the sense that it could create contrast with a white. The skirt below is maybe surprising. Again, just to be inclusive, you can find color palettes with surprisingly dark versions of neutral browns, and they can be interesting depending on the person. Some have darker hair or may have a darker skin tone and still be a light summer. I like this skirt because it takes a dark color, breaks it up with some white, and puts it as a skirt further from the face. And so the overall effect is contrasting. And you would want to wear something colorful or light in the upper half. But it takes light summer, let's say, to its darkness end point with whites that work well for the season. Soon as spring comes into the mix, the magic formula is color. They don't really need anything else. And quite a lot of color, not just in terms of a single color, but colors together. One of my favorites, similar to what we saw in True Summer, this violet dress at the top, it's just fantastic. There will be slight yellow tones in the skin, sometimes in the eyes, and this purple, along with these yellow tones, absolutely gorgeous. Next color down, the darkest of the blue-greens, depending on your palette. If I had to choose one color that is spectacular on every light summer, this would be it. I see it coming with the luxury drapes, and I almost have to calm down because I know what's going to happen, and it's so good. And I know the person's going to really like it too, which matters a lot to me. And then below that, because light summer has more brightness, higher saturation than the other two summers, and can manage a fairly dark end point as long as they manage it, they can do certain winter-like effects. They can kind of mimic the contrast of winter, just back off of the extremes a tiny bit, so they just stay inside the light to dark boundaries. The skirt, the blue's relatively dark as light summer goes. The green is the lightest of the pastel greens for this season, because their lights don't go very light other than the neutrals, the pastel season. And then the graffiti, it's charcoal. It's not black. There's an innovation, there's an unexpectedness about this, which suits spring very well. Spring is very good with what's going to happen. Who saw that coming? Spring will make a home for that and it'll still be very convincing. Where does credibility become costume? I think this is still within the realm of credibility, but interesting, kind of artistic. Adapted for a narrower light to dark range. Soft summer. The white here may be a little more golden or pigmented or both than the image in the previous video with the 12 whites. That one seemed a little grayer and pinker, or it looked a little grayer surrounded by brighter grays. But the lace top here I think is about right. Your palette might have different whites. Well, that's fine. And if you feel that you're looking at a top like this one, you don't see this white in your color palette, but from your reading and from Pinterest and videos, you think this really should work. I don't know who else would wear it. Hide the white strip of the palette. Now, how does it work? And if the colors can look about the same and you can make nice combinations, then it's going to likely work well. If you're not sure if a color is too warm or too cool, look at one color family. If you look at the whole palette, there's way too much information coming at you. Look at one color family. I like the reds because the warm and the neutral and the cool, they tend to be on separate strips and they're easy to separate. So if this color were too warm, The cooler reds in soft summer are going to start looking cooler than they are, to violet, compared to how they looked just on neutral gray. And if a color you're looking at is too cool for the palette, then the warmer red tones are going to look warmer than they are, kind of brick or terracotta. It's a way of working with it. If your eyes think, well, they look the same, what am I supposed to be seeing here? Then it's likely perfectly fine. Next, top down, that slight pinkish tone in the beige beneath, kind of a nude pink beige. I find this absolutely gorgeous on soft summer. It's too pink, making it summery, for an autumn to wear. Their colors, their beiges will be greener, more golden, more oatmeal kind of. But this pinkness is a summer thing. And you see the same sort of warm tone in the top below. There's a golden property here, but you still make out the pinkness. It doesn't show up in every color palette, and that's okay. The idea is, are there enough tones that carry across that you can recognize, yeah, I see this here and I see this here too, and I can make beautiful combinations and I can find a lipstick. You're good to go. Next row, over at the top, the blue-violet dress. Possibly my favorite color on soft summer. Beautiful black alternative. The season goes one level darker than this. And as it goes darker, it doesn't have more pigment. The trick with soft seasons is how to get darker without getting more pigmented. More pigmented looks inky, it gets looking wintry. You want it to have more darkness without having more pigment. But this color family, blue-violet, fantastic. It's amazing on men as well. Below that, the plaid skirt. Now you do see some greener tones. This is a neutral season. Color wheel turns left and right. And so as they approach soft autumn, you'll get greener tones in the dark gray. What I love here, though, is this gradient of light, medium, and dark grays woven into the plaid. These gradients are really nice on summer-influenced seasons, that gentle, gradual transition from light to dark, rather than the absolute extremes of white and black. That becomes the only thing you can see, and the clothing says nothing either. But these gradients, this movement across, is truly gorgeous. Then we have another of my favorite colors on soft summer, more berry than burgundy. The ribbing adds a bit of texture that autumn loves. This color is soft relative to the version winters would wear, which is much more dark and much more red. And this is also a fabulous lip color for soft summer. Next column at the top, a pink coffee, would you call it? Definitely a dark beige, could be beautiful color in the hair, could be a contour in cosmetics, but you still see that bit of pink in it. The dress below is amazing. Hard to define what the color is. You see dark gray like pewter, and then you see tones of blue, and you see teal, and then you see violet. It's a type of effect that is magical for summer. It's kind of like an illusion. They aren't magical properties, like a wallet at a gas station. It's amazing what it can do. And then below that, another color, so beautiful. I mean, what are you going to do with black when you have this? More red-violet relative to the top of the center row, and darker too. Soft summer has no particular issue for darkness, although the darkness would not go beyond this point. What is an issue for soft summer is brightness. But the metallic pewter of the center dress and this matte textile, absolutely stunning, and can look really quite colorful when worn by this person, and colorful enough. You wouldn't want more color under their face. Next we have the three springs. Well, what's spring's magic? It's not contrast. It's not texture, it's not peace. They're available as they are to all seasons, just like light, medium, and dark colors are available to all seasons. But what brings out the amazing is color. First row, white alternatives, another version of the very warm peachy ivory. Golden beige is the second item. And then the shirt at the bottom, I like it because it can be a white alternative, can be a neutral. I like that the fabric lets air move through. One of the biggest features for spring colors is this buoyancy, lift, float, like a parachute, energy up. The energy goes up the stem to the flower, And a lot of that comes from the freedom of air and light to move through, why transparency effects are also so good for spring. The middle row, item at the top, could be an example of spring khaki, richly pigmented, olive green, but it's not grayish olive. Once again, beautiful feature of air and light moving through, and you can see the skin tone through the fabric would make a print effect. It'd be really beautiful, interesting. For both warm groups, true autumn, true spring, and even their neutral seasons, I think color as neutrals can work very well. They are colorful on the surface to look at, and so colors that repeat the natural coloring of the hair particularly can work very nicely as neutral tones. I love blue-green, I love turquoise. It's a basic version of blue for true spring. And here, this is as dark as the color would get. And maybe it is a bit on the blue side, but you combine it with a warmer white, you'll get a relatively high level of contrast that still looks interesting, flatters the skin tone, and the smooth shine of the textile that makes the color look a bit lighter than it is. It may reflect any warm light around, both of which bring it closer to true spring. Third item, medium dark brown with a golden shimmer. Looks like sunlit sand. For a season where darkness gets dark too fast, it can look so much darker than it is. And if it's dark and cool, it's hard to control. This is a nice alternative to dark color. Combine it with a light color, you still meet the contrast level of the person wearing it. This will still function as a neutral. Over in the third row at the top, my favorite color for true spring is the top. Probably the darkest or one of their darker reds, very warm. You see the yellow coming out of it, but it's not orange. This is coral. Lovely effect at the wrists. Have like little parachutes, little balloons. It really suits the lightness of weight of these colors. It kind of lifts the arms, lifts the entire blouse. Next down, I said in a couple of seasons that you'll find palettes where colors will go darker than the traditional version of the colors for the season. This would be an example for true spring, where a version of a dark brown, if it's a true spring person with dark hair color or who wants to go darker than the palette, this would be an option. There's not many of them, but there were some. And then below that, the blue dress. It's not a lot of dark blue for true spring. It's mostly blue-green. But it does look terrific. And this is a lovely choice. It's not especially dark. Smooth shine works beautifully well. Kind of a greenish blue rather than a violet blue. They will do periwinkle, but it is much more committed violet than this. And I could see this easily as a pair of jeans. Next we have light spring. Spring with summer, mostly spring. A couple more options of white to begin with. You see the peachy tones in the one above. The feather spray, like that's just good. It really suits the color very nicely. And more yellow or creamy tones in the blouse in the center, closer to true spring maybe, just a little bit less pigment. Dress at the bottom, so nice. It's a kind of silvery beige that looks very beautiful on light spring. The coloring of light spring, their hair color, their fabulous eyeshadows, they're based in beige, not brown. Brown meaning, let's say, pony brown or teddy bear brown, redder, darker browns. And this color is far enough from white to create definition. The person and the color, they don't blend into what they're wearing. And a beautiful neutral too for accessorizing. So as a white alternative, I mean, it could be a blouse or a camisole, could be anything, but you could add so much in the way of accessories. Could be a t-shirt, could be a man's tie. It would work extremely well. The shine is great. The dark areas are not much darker than the main color. Light areas not much lighter. An effect that works well across the summer influenced seasons. Row in the center at the top. Great, great version of navy blue. Would not get darker than this, but I love blues on springs, on light springs. Speaks to the bit of summer in them. May not be as noticeable in the surface coloring of most light springs, and so it gives that surprising or special effect That's great for creating crisp effect with their whites. I love the jeans because the textile looks modern. It does not look rugged in any way. And the blues and greens and the reflective properties of the fabric, it's a kind of mermaid quality to the color. They're even a little velvety. Nice way for this coloring to wear suede. The magic is the meaning that they can give to lightness. The turquoise skirt at the bottom, fabulous black alternative, one of my favorite colors on light spring. Beautiful here in this fabric because the color changes with the movement of the body through the pleats. Same watery and airy sensations. I like the asymmetry in the cut of the skirt and has really evocative of both spring and summer. The dress at the top of the third row, it's lovely. It's soft but bright. There's a gentle brightness to light spring. Darker blue with violet in it. You could maybe call it periwinkle. Gauzy textile, beautiful for light spring. The skirt is the skirt below, similar to the bubble print. We saw the more contrasting skirt we saw in light summer. Similar idea, but here the white is warmer and the brown is not as dark. Light spring's an overall lighter season. The dark pocket, the pocket patch, that's pretty dark. But in a small item, provides an area of contrast. So you don't need total body, upper half, lower half, light to dark extremes. You can express it in a very small area here, further from the face. And it adds an element of interest or innovation without becoming the focal point of the entire appearance. The lacy dress at the end of this row, same as the skirt next door. If a light spring were going to a party, this is what I would put them in. Again, there's got the lace. You have a fairly dark version of blue-green. Color need not go any darker than this. And in their own ways, these garments all reflect light and hint at the movement of air and water. Bright spring is the spring that mixes in a touch of winter. So they have a wider light to dark range than the other springs, approaching white and black. In the first row, a few white alternatives or ways of wearing white. At the top, a slightly warm white because this is a neutral leaning towards warm season. And I love that it combines gold and silver together. It's a kind of spun gold effect. I really enjoy that on bright spring. Could be mixed metals in jewelry. Just looks terrific. Item below that, clear warm white in the front center panel. Peachy beige along the side panels. Then what's really great is the way they've used black to outline the edge between the garment and the body without using too much black. We talked about this in dark autumn too. A little bit of black to define shapes is great. Once it becomes thick and heavy, especially on a spring, it looks chunky, it just stops saying or doing anything. The black becomes all about itself. Blouse at the bottom, another example. Restrained use of black in a warmer white background, but keeps the overall effect crisp, along with light, bright, and warm, as this season is. Black alternatives in the center row. Variation of their darker brown at the top. The season becomes quite dark in the neutral tones, not so much in the colors. The sheer overlay in the skirt adds the lightness and it adds the lift. Compared with how the skirt would look without that, wouldn't be nearly as lovely. Dress below is a beautiful bright blue, probably a color that would work fine for bright winter too. Silver buttons, white stitching. Below that is a version of black, cooler than the skirt at the top of this row, and takes a step back in darkness from pitch black, which you can kind of see the pants that the model in the next row over with the red blouse is wearing. Sheerness of textile, floaty details on the shoulder, gorgeous for spring. In the third row, other colors, effects I love on bright spring, what I'd put them in for a party. Black would be, it'd be a last resort color for everybody, but definitely it would be that here. Bright blue at the top. This is my favorite blue for Bright Spring. It's not a black alternatives probably, but it's a gorgeous color. The textile is matte and woven, but the color is the thing you notice. I like the little fringe at the cuff and at the hem. It's lets light through. Maybe a little more interesting to me than a ruffle, but that could be just me. Next item down, beautiful, gorgeous lip color or lip gloss. You see the yellow coming out of it, but there's a lot of red here. It contrasts well with the black pants. I think the black actually does look severe or maybe bottom heavy if we saw the full length version, but the color doesn't have enough brightness that it can hold its own with black. Beautiful details, the sleeves, the sheer fabric, the bow, it could all have been left out. The blouse could have just been one color and one fabric, but these details add. I'm glad that they weren't left out. The final item, the printed blouse, so many attributes of Bright Spring, lots of colors at once. Spring does that so well. And although there is winter in this group, and we find winter colors tend to look better on their own because too many together just becomes a little bit insistent or aggressive, not for Bright Spring. Bright Spring can pull off these multicolored effects and it looks fabulous. So here you've got a warm white background and beautiful, generous use of orange, green, red, blue, kind of like the scarf we saw in True Autumn. There's a lovely, warm, cool color contrast going on in this neutral season where color diversity is good, complementary colors, meaning opposites on the color wheel, entirely comfortable. It's like in the first row, blouses. There's black here, but it's not the predominant aspect of the design. Lightness of the background, orange, green, next to the darkness of red and blue. That's where your contrast comes from. And if you want to wear a darker pant with this, you certainly can. And then the print, the four corner symmetry in the print, easy to see, looks imaginative. It's very successful artistic way to combine a lot of colors at once because you can't necessarily splash them in there. They look a bit better when they have some intention, particularly on a person that has winter in their coloring. I hope you got all kinds of new ideas from these two videos. I hope you understand your white and black options better. And I hope that you ask me lots of questions in the comments. As always, I am very thankful that you were here today, and we'll see each other again in our next video.